Hello there. My name is Jasom Jensai, and welcome to Jasom Jensai Hangout 8. In this stream, I'm going to be talking about the episode 8, the finale of Mandalorian, because next week is going to be season 2, Mandalorian season 2, episode 1. Super excited for that, but I'm also excited for because episode 8 is it is my favorite episode of The Mandalorian. It's so good. The other topic I have is which planet is your favorite? So that's which one would you want to live on? All that sort of thing. Hey Noah Logs, how you doing? Glad to see you're here. I can't wait to talk about this with you. The last topic I have is Anakin Skywalker. How powerful is he? Is he the most powerful? Is he just kind of average? How powerful is Anakin Skywalker? All that in this stream, but first, the question of the stream. For those of you who don't know, the question of the stream is, I have a question every stream, and if you answer it correctly, you get 10 points. So, the question for this stream is, what is the name of Thrawn's Star Destroyer? So, the first person to tell me the name of the Star Destroyer that Thrawn commands, since I think he only got one. Yeah, so the first one to tell me what Thrawn's Star Destroyer is gets 10 points. You only get one guess, though, and don't look it up. Those are the only guidelines I have. So that goes for all the stream. That goes for if you're watching after the stream. If you're, with a comment, you can get 10 points, as long as no one else has gotten it before. So with that done, I'm going to move on to the next part, the first main topic, which is the Mandalorian, episode 8, and what I thought about that episode. So I just watched it, super awesome episode, and I wrote down another half page of notes about that. So, one thing I first want to say, before I get into the more serious stuff, is that speeder bikes are awesome. Just one of the first things you see is the two speeder bikes just zooming along across Navarro. And of course, you also see IG-11 later going no-handed on his speeder bike. Speeder bikes are awesome. No-handed is even better. I just love speeder bikes. They're so fast, and they kind of move. I don't know. They move very fluidly. They've got a lot of swerve to them. So, speeder bikes are awesome. The other thing that's awesome is the stormtrooper scene at the beginning. The rest of the episode is kind of serious, so this doesn't really fit with the tone, but it's right at the beginning, and I think it's just a nice breather before we get back from episode 7, super tense, to episode 8, again, very tense. I do wish that it hadn't gone on quite as long. And by the way, if you're watching, Noah, please say something in the chat if you liked the stream. I'd love to comment on that as well. And if you're watching after the stream, in the comments, say it. I'll respond. So that stormtrooper scene was pretty good. Well, in my opinion, up until when they started shooting at the thing and started just missing, that was a bit awkward. I don't know. One thing that I think they could have pulled it off if the second stormtrooper had just hit his target super easily. Then you're still making fun of stormtroopers for not being able to shoot, but you're not saying all stormtroopers are just awful, which isn't true. It's just the ones in Rebels and stuff, because in the movies they're not actually that bad. I should do a stream on that. Should totally do that. Anyways, yeah. So if the first one, who's kind of the not serious one, he's the one who just wants to see Baby Yoda, and he's kind of surprised that Moff Gideon killed a bunch of people just to make a point. If that guy had missed, and the other guy who gets the point, that would be pretty good. in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think of that? Would that be a good change, or should you just get rid of the shooting altogether, or is that the best part of the scene or the episode? What do you think of that scene? So right after that, oh my god, I love this episode so much. There's barely a moment I don't like. This next scene is also awesome. IG-11 walks up and totally just destroys the two stormtroopers. Super cool. And as I said before, then he goes into town no-handed on a speeder bike. That is just so cool. IG-11 just the way he moves is awesome. I really like watching IG-11, which is sad because he dies, but I don't know. I'll get to that later. So back with the Mando and Moff Gideon and Cara Dune. Who did I miss? I missed Grief Karga. That's the guy. That scene there with, basically just Moff Gideon telling them, "You have no hope. You should just surrender." And they're basically like, "Well, I guess he's kind of right. We can't surrender, but we can't really fight either." They're kind of screwed. And Moff Gideon's just the way he simply tells them exactly like how screwed they are is very menacing. Moff Gideon makes that scene very tense. But another thing that makes that scene very good is the score. Ludwig did a great job in pretty all of these episodes. They're all so good. The main theme, the secondary main theme that they play a lot. It's kind of like a similar one, but it's not the same. It's got a piano instead of a, what do they use? It's a bass guitar, I think. I don't know. Sounds like a bass guitar to me. Anyways, the score is so good with the strings, especially for this episode. So then, in Mando's I don't know, flashback? Yeah, flashback. In his flashback, I think it's super cool to see the super battle droids. It's cool to see super battle droids just mowing down civilians, and then the super battle droids getting mowed down by Mandalorians. Just looks cool to me. I don't know. So, yeah, what do you think of all the stuff up until then? So, the Stormtroopers, IG-11, Moff Gideon, Moff Gideon and how he's portrayed. The Mando's flashback. So, yeah. So then they go, IG-11 finally arrives on his awesome speeder bike and starts taking out stormtroopers. Mando goes out. They basically just start this giant battle against the stormtroopers, and they push back. They push back pretty well at first, but then the stormtroopers start to overwhelm them. But then they push back again when Mando, just like he did in the very first episode, he grabs the big gun and starts shooting everyone with it. That's a great touch. I like that. And then they start losing once again when Moff Gideon comes out and turns the battle to the Empire's favor in one of the most creative ways. Maybe not the most creative ways, but a decently creative way. And I just like the way that Moff Gideon is acted. He's so confident. Yeah, confidence I think is the word I would use to describe it. So, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, Moff Gideon, super confident. Right. So I love how Mando, he's got the giant gun, and Moff Gideon points his little tiny one at Mando, and Mando just turns around and points his gun at him, and you're like, oh, that's funny. Moff Gideon is so gonna lose. But then it focuses on the power pack that's powering the E-Web, and you're like, oh wait, he's gonna shoot the power pack, and then he tilts his gun and shoots. Super, I don't know, how do you describe it? Confidently, yes, but I think a better word to describe it is, I don't know how to describe that. He moves like staccato. It's like staccato. He just moves and shoots. very punchy. Yeah, and then giant explosion, but of course Mando has Beskar, so he survives. But that scene with him almost dying and seeing how the various characters react to that is super cool. The flamethrower trooper, super awesome. Yoda shooting fire back, also awesome. I love that we're getting to see new powers, but it's a way that they found a way to introduce us to new powers through Baby Yoda, because Baby Yoda he's a baby, so he's not learning anything. He learns instinctively. So when he gets flame shot at him, of course he's gonna use his magic powers to shoot flames. He doesn't have the lack of belief of adults or even older kids. So I love that they have that way to introduce us to all these new powers. Not so much force healing, because I don't see how that fits with the. Anyways, like flame, if they did, I don't know, he's shifting, like turning ice into water and water in his team, that kind of thing. But yeah, cool way to show new powers is Baby Yoda, or the child, as he's technically called. So yeah, so then they have a lot of good moments. Well, sure. Mando and IG-11 go into the tunnels. Oh, one thing I want to mention that I forgot to write in my notes. That scene with him talking to Mando about how he's not alive and eventually getting him to the point where he sprays the Bacta and they heal him basically. That was a very tense yet funny scene. I don't know, very very well done. I like the voice act. Both actors just nailed it. So then after that, they're kind of just walking around. Not a ton going on. That's probably missing repeatedly, which I thought was kind of cringy. That's probably going on. And even when Mando sees the Mandalorian armor, it's like that scene it hits you hard because you can tell just based on how Mando just stops and looks. And I don't remember, he might say something around there, but not much goes on. Even it's kind of a short scene until he starts yelling at Moff Gideon, which I can understand, but I don't think that fits in his character as much. It's not super bad, but I think it's a bit of an overreaction, and it's not nailing his character. This episode does. It's not boring. It's just not as good as the rest of the episode, because the rest of the episode is just awesome. I love this episode. Yeah, and then the scene with the armor, giving him all this stuff, it's necessary. Like, you got to show how he gets his new toys, but and how, because if you remember, he had no charges when they needed to break open the grate, but then he's got them for the TIE fighter. It's because he restocks there. Yeah, just that scene's kind of boring, but also necessary, because if they didn't show it, you'd be missing part of this. I think where it starts to get back to normal, if normal, like when it starts to get back to the best of the best, is fighting the stormtroopers. Super awesome. She waits until they get close to her melee weapon, so she wants them to get close, and then just beats them up. Uses them for cover. Just awesome. Very well done. Then the next part is one of my favorites, but just like, I think it was last episode, or last week almost, because I'm recording this on Saturday. Last time I talked about when Queel died, how sadness is, like, good stories aren't always happy stories, which in this episode, when IG-11, more important than that I want to talk about is how they make it sad, because IG-11, like, just seeing a character die isn't that cool, but the thing is, IG-11 is a droid, so Mando shouldn't like him. He almost killed Baby Yoda, so Mando shouldn't like him, And yet, over the course of the episode, because IG-11 saves them all when he shows up on, convinces him to take off his helmet and shoots the Bacta at him. Even when he goes to deal with that squad of stormtroopers, while Mando is getting his jetpack and all that stuff from the armorer. Just through the course of this mission, IG-11 has become just like a companion, not just to the viewers, but also to Mando, and that cements him. Because as I said earlier, Mando should hate him because he hates droids and he hates people who try and kill the child. And IG-11 has done both of those things, but Mando was able to forgive him to the point of sadness at the thought of his death. So another thing is, something happened. Is the stream still going? Dang it. Okay, so let's see if I can figure this out. So yeah, I had a problem with the chat again. Sorry, Noah. General Kenobi, how about yourself? I'm doing good. I think that's what you meant. Oh, Anakin. Yeah, we'll get to that. Can't wait for season 2. Same. So excited. Should be here next week on Saturday, reviewing that. Can't wait for that. Love the speeders. Yes, speeders are awesome. Thought it was cool. Yep. Yeah. IG-11. So sad when he dies. Okay. Yeah. So, agreement from the chat. Thanks, Noah. Let's hope my phone works. Yeah. So another interesting thing about IG-11 and his whole death situation is he doesn't even consider himself alive, which is kind of interesting. I've always thought, oh, it'd be interesting if there was a droid who was where they went into whether droids are alive or not, and that kind of thing, and the morality of making and forcing them into servitude. But I think it's almost more interesting to have a droid that is alive. The only thing separating it from beings in Star Wars and what it is itself is the fact that it was made through different means than humans and other aliens are made. But so it is alive, but it doesn't consider itself alive, which is very interesting, especially when things like Mando's no living thing has seen me without my helmet, and IG-11's well, I've never been alive, and so then he convinces him that he's allowed to see him. And another thing when Mando is sad, and he's well, why are you sad? I've never been alive, so if I die, it won't really matter. So, yeah. I think it's interesting that he doesn't consider himself to be alive. What do you think of that? Yeah. IG-11's death, so sad. But they did it in a very creative way, and a way that made it necessary because of and they set it up again. They set things up in the first episode. So awesome. They must have had a plan or something. I don't know. Yeah, how he blows up because of his self-destruct protocol. Super cool. Makes sense. Combine those two, you get a good story. So, yeah. Then after IG-11's death, even after they take out all those stormtroopers, they've still got one last threat. Moff Gideon and his TIE fighter. And again, they take him out in an epic way that's very creative and makes sense and is very tense. He goes by the first pass, misses, goes by another one, almost he misses again. But that time Mando used his jetpack, launched himself up, and grabs onto the grapple hook. So it's probably my favorite. Is it my favorite moment? What's my favorite moment in this episode? That might be it. Yeah, that's got to be it. There's a lot of just epic moments in this episode, and in all of the episodes, but especially this one. But I think seeing Mando shoot up with his jetpack, turn around midair and like launch out his grapple hook is the most epic moment in this episode. What do you think what's your most, not your favorite moment? What do you think is the most epic moment in this episode? And if you want, you can do the most epic moment in all of the Mandalorian TV show. So, yeah. That scene where he's hanging on, he's got to get the bombs on, he finally does. It's super epic and super tense. And I think that's actually the like mood or feeling that I get from this particular episode is epic and tense. The stakes are super high. The good guys are so close to losing, but they do like just brave, epic, bold, all that type of things, and they succeed despite the odds, which of course makes it very tense. And they do this throughout the entire episode, which only has 8 episodes, whereas the other ones have not quite hundreds for Rebels, over 80, I think. And Clone Wars has even more. Yeah. I think I have an unpopular opinion, but I think Rebels is better than Clone Wars overall. Clone Wars has some really good episodes, but they're not connected, so you don't have the connection that you get to the same characters. And sure, the same characters are usually in there. It's usually Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Anakin going on some adventure. But I just think Rebels is a slightly better TV show, at least in some ways. So seeing things that were started in the Clone Wars, that were also in Rebels, and show up in The Mandalorian in live action. And by the way, the Darksaber looks so good in live action. A lot of things I don't think would look good in live action. Such as, let me think. Probably some of the battles, like how Sidious moves around, that might look good in live action, but I don't know. He's a bit flexible. I don't know. They're like, the Bad Batch might not look good in live action, especially Tech with his like, not glasses, but like circular, clear lenses. Or does he have a visor? Does he have both? I don't remember. I think, yeah, they might not look good in live action. It's harder. It's not always good to transition from animation to live action, at least 1-to-1. But the Darksaber looks really good in live action. So I can't wait to see what they do with that, because that'll certainly have a lot of implications for Mandalore, for the Mando, for just the entire show. I can't wait to see what they do with it. Oh man, my phone doesn't work. Okay, I think that'll work. So that's it for episode 8. My favorite episode so far of The Mandalorian. I hope they come up with better ones in season 2. Not because this one isn't good, but because I just would rather have it be better. Why wouldn't you? Super awesome. I can't imagine anything better. Oh well, I can make tweaks that would make it better. But I wouldn't be able to come up with anything any better. They did a great job on this episode. So good job them. Let's move on to the next segment, which is your favorite planet in Star Wars. So, let me collect my thoughts. There's a lot of planets, and I think it's probably a pretty common question for how many, or what's your favorite planet in Star Wars? It's probably a pretty standard question among Star Wars fans. But there's a lot of different types of planets. Some of the coolest planets you would not want to live on. For example, Coruscant is an awesome planet, but personally, I wouldn't really want to live on it. It's too busy. I don't like crowds. I find them obnoxious. So I think there's a few categories to base it on. So the one would be, which one would you want to live on? Another one could be, which one do you think like is the most epic? Like it's the coolest looking. It's just super awesome. It's awe-inspiring. Um Maybe it's has the most interesting flora or fauna. Like what is the most epic or interesting planet? The next one would be like, which one would you want to visit? So not which one would you want to live, not which one looks the coolest, but which one would you want to just take a vacation at or something. Oh boy, something's happening to the stream. Um, I'm just gonna pretend nothing's happening and hope nothing's happening. I can't tell. So, yeah. So there's those three criteria, and then there's the basically the total. Which one is your favorite, taking into account those three things? So which one would you want to live on? Which one is the most, or which one is the coolest? Not temperature. That's Hoth. Which one would you want to visit? And what's your favorite overall, taking into account all three of those? So, personally, for me, and leave your answers to these in the chat, or in the comments if you're watching afterwards. Personally, for me, my the one I would want to live on most is Alderaan. Um, Obviously, it gets blown up, so I wouldn't live on it long. That kind of thing. It's pretty funny, but um, for most of its for most of history, it wasn't blown up. If I was in the sequel era, I wouldn't choose it. Even in the Empire area, I still might choose it because it's such a good planet. Um, with its mountains, it's kind of snowy, which I'm from Minnesota, so I really like the snow. I like cold. Um, like my favorite temperature is like 50 degrees Fahrenheit or like 10 degrees Celsius. Unless there's wind. If there's wind, probably a few degrees higher. But I like the cold. I'm very comfortable in the cold, and even like freezing temperature is not too bad for me. Like I could go out, be very comfortable. Um, yeah. So I like the cold. So I like Alderaan. I like mountains. They look pretty cool, and it's a pretty prosperous and peaceful and free culture there. So Alderaan is the one I would want to live on. The one I would want to visit, probably, not Coruscant. Maybe Naboo. That's kind of boring though, because Naboo's kind of too similar to Earth. I would want something more unique. Oh, um, it's the no, not that one. Never mind. I was thinking of Quartzite, the one with the Kagi. It's the planet that Ventress and Boba's bounty hunter team go to in the Clone Wars episode where they have the Kagi girl and they were supposed to deliver it to the other species leader. I don't remember their name. But yeah, that planet is pretty cool, but not my favorite. I think the one I would choose is it. No, never mind. Not that one. It's not a planet, but the one if the planet or space station I would choose is the Death Star. As terrifying and as evil as the Death Star is, it would be super awesome to go to a space station the size of a small moon. That would be super cool. Yeah. So the The next, yeah, planet though. What planet would I visit? Hmm. Okay, what are some planets? What do I have on the screen here? So definitely not Kessel. Lothal, maybe. Mandalore, nah. Mon Cala, Mortis, Mustafar, Naboo. Definitely not Rhodia. Luke said it stinks, so. Ryloth, Scarif, Sullust, Takodana. Although it appears that they spelled that wrong in the picture. That's pretty funny. Tatooine, Utapau. Ooh, Yavin 4. I would want to visit Yavin 4. Super. It's just super cool looking with the overgrown temples, just the giant forests. That would be interesting. Um, that's probably one of the coolest planets. I don't know if that's my most. That's the best planet, or not the best. It's not the best. Not the most epic. I think is, yeah, the most epic planet. I don't think it's the most epic, but that one is cool. It's interesting and it's got a nice climate. So actually, it's probably a bit warm, but I can deal with that for a vacation, a few weeks at most. Yeah, so that's the one I would want to visit the most after so long of thinking about it. I finally decided Yavin 4. Now for the next one, the one I think is the most epic. Um, so there's a lot of epic planets in Star Wars. Um, Jeddah. Jeddah is pretty cool. That's a good one to visit. Mustafar, of course, one of the most epic planets. Starkiller Base. Ilum. What else is there? There's that one planet. I don't know what it's called. It's from Phoenix. No, what? It's the Battlefront 2 people. Let me look it up. It's the book from Battlefront 2, and they go to it, and there's um the rebels there, the remnants, like a few partisans who weren't on Jeddah were on this planet. I can't find what the book is called. I don't know. It's some like Phoenix or Red or Fire or something. Some squadron. They're known from Battlefront 2, but there's also a book about them. Anyways, they go to this planet and it's always night. They Del Nico, the like engineer of the group, he starts investigating like weird rock droids. They're like not normal droids. They find them underground. He's with a rebel engineer named Pia Cow. I think it's Pia Cow. And there's like these. They have like crystals where human organs should be. And they can move around. I don't know. I don't know how they work. They're basically primitive rock droids. But yeah, that planet seems pretty beautiful. I don't know. I like night. It's nice and calm and peaceful. Um, so yeah, I think I have to say Mustafar is the most epic planet. There's just something awesome about a planet of lava. I mean, Navarro's cool, but it's not quite as um volatile. It's not quite as bright. It's more of a rocky, volcanic rock planet with some lava rivers, while Mustafar is just full on lava. So, Mustafar is the most epic planet in my opinion, but my favorite one overall, taking into account which one would I want to live on, which one would I want to visit, which one would I think is the most epic. My favorite planet, taking in all three of those factors, is probably Jeddah. That one would be cool to visit. It's pretty epic. Um, and it wouldn't be bad to live there. So that's probably my favorite one overall. Maybe Ilum, actually. Ooh, but that'd be pretty terrible to live on. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Jeddah. Of course, just like Alderaan, there is the problem of the Death Star, which didn't blow Jeddah up, but it kind of blew up an entire city, a giant section of it. Like that's not good for the environment, I'm assuming. Like if you have a character saying there's a problem on the horizon, there's no horizon, you've probably got a problem on the horizon as in um time, so in like 10 years. And that's pretty much your entire ecosystem is going to be dead. So, I don't know. I'm not a um biologist. I don't know. But I'm guessing a Death Star like that would ruin the entire planet, which is already a desert, so maybe not. But who knows? Jeddah is probably my favorite planet overall. Alderaan is the one I would want to live on. The one I would want to visit is, what did I say? Um, I already forgot. Did I say Jeddah? I considered Jeddah. Hmm. I don't remember. You guys will have to tell me in the comments or the chat. That's kind of sad, actually. But yeah, the one I think is the most epic is of course Mustafar. Um, Vader's castle, that duel there, super awesome. But that's it for favorite planets. If what's your favorite planet? Tell me in the chat. Tell me in the comments. Hit like while you're at it. All that kind of thing. Moving on, not that one. Moving on to the next part, which is how powerful is Anakin Skywalker? So, when answering this type of question, a lot of people immediately start coming up with reasons for why he should be powerful. He's the chosen one. He was a child of the Force. He was trained by Obi-Wan Kenobi. He brought balance to the Force. All this stuff. They point out reasons why he should be powerful rather than actual feats that he accomplished that show he's powerful. If you're trying to predict how powerful he can become, those are great. If you're trying to predict how powerful he might be, those will do fine. But if you have actual feats, if you've got proof of how powerful Anakin is, that is even better because that shows you it's not just a guess based on factors. It's not what you would expect it to be. It is what it is. Um just it's just the history of what it is. So, like most people, Anakin gets stronger and stronger as he learns, as he ages. But he does have a point where you could say he gets weaker. And that's, of course, when he gets his 3 limbs chopped off and burned in lava, the whole Darth Vader situation. That's a... It could be argued that Darth Vader is more powerful than Anakin, but it could be also argued that Anakin is more powerful than Vader. So in order to figure out how powerful Anakin slash Vader is at his most, because I'm not really interested in how powerful he was when he was a baby. That's kind of boring. But how powerful Anakin was at his most, we got to figure out who was more powerful, Vader or Anakin. So Vader, let's go through physical abilities. So the way I like to divide this is speed, strength, toughness, endurance, and what's the last one? Skill. So that's like precision. Basically the lightsaber skills, lightsaber abilities, that kind of thing. Not just lightsabers. That goes for like hand-to-hand combat, blasters if you have those, all the things. One thing about there's probably 3 aspects to speed. There's reflexes, there's like running speed, and there's also just like how fast you can move your weapon. So if you can move it a lot faster, of course, that's different than moving your legs a lot faster. It's different than being able to react to things faster, but it's still in that same category of speed. Um, so how Anakin and Vader compare in speed is a clear win for Anakin. It could be argued that Vader has better reflexes, but they're so good. I don't think it's gonna matter. I think Vader seems to have better reflexes because he has more skill. His motions are more efficient. He's not wasting so much time focusing on powerful attacks. He's focused more on leverage and precision and making sure his opponent can't overwhelm him. So he relies more on his reflexes and uses his skill more, which gives him a perceived heightened reflexes. But I think he's similar to Anakin. Like, it's impossible to tell which. The next one is running, which of course doesn't play that much in a fight, depending on the fight. A one-on-one duel, running would not matter that much, but obviously a race, running would be the only factor. Well, almost the only factor. But in like a team battle, like a 2-on-2, running could be helpful, as seen in Duel of the Fates, when Obi-Wan can't run fast enough and gets locked behind the laser gates, and then Qui-Gon dies as a result. So running is important, but it's not quite as important as other abilities, at least in combat. And this question is, it is power. It's how powerful is Anakin, but it's not so much like how strong is he or how much force can he put out with the force. It's more his dueling, his battle, all that, his fighting, his combat prowess, basically. And you know what? I mean, I'll mention some non-combat abilities too. So Vader, I don't know how fast he is at running, but it's probably not very fast. Like, definitely not as fast as Anakin, who is probably pretty fast. Again, we don't really have their mile times or anything, but it can be assumed that Anakin, a Jedi, and a in a good physical condition, would be a fast runner. As for speed of attacks, I think Anakin wins this one too, although not as drastically as he does at running. Because Vader isn't super slow, but he's definitely not as fast as Anakin. Anakin has a clear advantage there. But then we get on to strength, which although Anakin is very strong, that's one of his greatest strengths. Vader is even stronger, just by far. Just like Anakin has the clear speed advantage, Vader has the clear strength advantage. Another thing Vader definitely has is the toughness advantage. Mental toughness is probably about the same. Neither of them give up, like, ever. Even when Anakin has 3 limbs chopped off and he's burning, he doesn't give up. And we don't see quite the same kind of thing from Vader, just because he doesn't get in that type of situation. But we do see things like he gets his hand chopped off and he still kills the Empire. Or, not the Empire, the Emperor. And in Tarkin comic or something, I don't know what comic it is, I think it's a Vader comic, actually. I've seen it, I think. I don't remember. I haven't like sat down and not sat down. I haven't gone through the comics, so I don't know if I've actually seen the comic or I just saw a video on it. But anyways, however it is, Vader was able to somehow convince Tarkin to like hunt him, and it came down to Vader and Tarkin. But Tarkin like figured that since it was storming and Vader's kind of tall, he would get hit by lightning, and he was right. So Vader gets hit by lightning. He's almost dead, and yet he still force chokes Tarkin. He doesn't kill him, but he basically just is like, even though I got hit by lightning, you're still gonna die. Or you would still die if you were my enemy. So, both of them have extreme mental toughness, but Vader has a lot more literal physical toughness. The greatest example of this is in episode 5, he gets hit in the shoulder by a lightsaber. And not some like Count Dooku little slash poke thing. Which, by the way, Count Dooku isn't super weak. He's just not as strong as other people. He gets bashed by Luke Skywalker. He's not quite as strong as Vader in that fight, but he was strong enough to do one-handed handstand for I don't know how long, probably a long time. Like that's more than most people. So Luke is extremely strong, smashes Vader with a baseball lightsaber string, which fair enough, he doesn't have that much training. But Vader survives the hit. He says, ow, but that's about it. And then, of course, in Rebels, Ahsoka slashes him across the faceplate, which I'm sure if it wasn't a direct hit. But that point is, he survived 2 lightsaber strikes, 1 to the face. He's extremely tough. Blaster fire, he's blocked it with his hand. That might be the Force, though. I don't know. Yeah. So, Vader has the toughness advantage. As for endurance, this one's a bit harder to say, but I do think Vader has this one too. It just goes along with his toughness, and his strength. He's gonna have the endurance, victory too. I don't know if victory is the best word. He's got more endurance. But that might not even take, that might not even matter in the fight. Although, they're probably pretty even. It might take it. It might be a thing. But it's just a good thing to keep in mind that Vader probably has a little bit more endurance than Anakin. When you're comparing them. Then we get to the last one, which is skill. And this one, again, I think Vader has over Anakin. Anakin he's not unskilled. He's able to dishand. He's able to dishand Dooku. That might be more due to his speed and strength, but it does show a lot of skill, especially with his blade work there was pretty good. He kind of swung around. It's hard to describe with words without having time to think about it, but you've seen it. He like swings his hands around and brings it up, slices off both wrists. Pretty smooth. So he's not unskillful, but I think Vader has more skill here because not only do we see it, but there's a reason he has it, and that's he lost a lot of speed. So in order to keep up with fast people, he had to rely on skill. He's not going to rely on toughness to, like, even though he could just absorb the hit on his shoulder and stab his enemy, unless it's a really good one, really good enemy. He's not going to rely on that. That's just dangerous. You can rely on strength to some extent, but if you're super strong and someone's super fast, they're going to win because they're just going to dodge your blade and hit you. In order to properly use your strength, you have to actually be able to hit them, which if they're a fast person, such as Ahsoka, you wouldn't be able to do unless you had skill. And this skill is probably most seen in his duel with Ahsoka, just because he has to show it off to some extent, and that's where he shows off his speed and reflexes. His reflexes feed into his skill. His skill powers his strength, and his strength is how he dominates. So in lightsaber dueling, in I should say physical combat, I would say Vader takes the overall advantage. Anakin is faster and has comparable skill and endurance and pretty good strength and toughness. But I think Vader just has more experience, and this experience gives him skill. And he also has his suit of armor, which gives him strength and toughness and endurance. So when it comes right down to it, I think Vader would prevail in a lightsaber duel. But of course, lightsaber duels aren't everything, despite what most lightsaber duels or most two Force users battling end up being is just a lightsaber duel. But it's not everything, especially when you have characters like Vader, who use the Force quite frequently in their duels. Which is a really good strategy, something I very much encourage. Well, if I was a teacher, I would very much encourage all of my students to use the Force more frequently. Like Dooku, watching him battle is so awesome. Wow. So I really respect Dooku. He's an excellent swordsman. But Vader is also one of the people I would consider to be very smooth with his uses of the Force. Let's just get power out of the way. Anakin, I don't know what his greatest strength feat is. It's probably pretty strong. One thing to mention is his Force push was equal to Obi-Wan's. I don't know if that means, like, they both flew back. I don't know if that means that their Force push is literally equal, or if it's, like, within a few, like, pounds of Force. I don't know. That's probably a good way to measure it. Or if that's within, like, a few, I don't know, not a few, like, hundreds of pounds of Force. I don't know. If it's, like, but the point is they both fly backwards. They're near enough in raw power to make that happen. Which, although Obi-Wan isn't the strongest Force user, and his Force wall is just awful, I think it might be a bit exaggerated because he's always with Anakin. But the point is, Obi-Wan's not the most powerful, but his Force push is something he uses frequently and is actually pretty powerful. I'm pretty sure it's an ability in Battlefront 2, which I think they have like 3. So 1 out of 3, and I think one of them is a lightsaber ability. So that just shows that his Force push is one of his most powerful abilities. And like when he uses it on Grievous, he like launches him all the way up to the ceiling, smashes him against the thing, and Grievous is disarmed by that. That's actually pretty impressive. He's not destroyed, but of course it's General Grievous. You can't just Force push Grievous and think he'll die. That's probably why he can fight Force users. But yeah. So Anakin is about the level of Obi-Wan. And by the way, I think I should have said this earlier, but I think the most powerful Anakin has been in is between, like, say, Vader episode probably 6. I don't know. I'd have to see, because the only feats we see Vader do is his duel with Luke in episode 5 and his duel with Luke in episode 6, which I don't think he was going full out on it in episode 6. So if he was, then he's definitely more powerful in episode 5. But yeah, I don't know. I think he's probably most powerful in episode 6. I don't think age would slow him down as much as it would slow down other less robotic people. And with age comes experience, and with experience comes skill and good tactics, all that sort of thing. So I think Vader would be most powerful in episode 6, and Anakin most powerful in episode 3. So that's the two that we're comparing to see which one is more powerful. So anyways, back to Anakin. He's clearly very powerful. I don't know what his most powerful feat is. He hasn't, like, lifted a giant... Well, he's probably lifted a giant thing. I can't think off the top of my head of one particular feat that stands out. Like Maul taking apart the hyperdrive of the Venator class, that sticks out as Maul's greatest feat. Sidious, like, hurling Senate pods like crazy, that sticks out as a telekinesis feat. Of course, if you want to talk about Force Lightning, you could either do him like almost overpowering a lightsaber in terms of Force Lightning power, which is just insane. Or if you want to get really crazy, you could talk about The Rise of Skywalker, where he's taking out an entire fleet with Force Lightning. Although, then again, the next scene, he can't take on two lightsabers for some reason. Anyways, I digress. In terms of Force abilities, Anakin is super powerful, uses it pretty quickly, although he doesn't always use it mid-duel. If he can't reach them, like his opponent or someone he's trying to save, he'll use the Force. He's not the most fluid user, but he is pretty high up there. So then there's Vader, and Vader has one feat that particularly sticks out to me, and, well, there's two. The first one I want to mention is probably one that a lot of people consider, and that's his force choking of Admiral Ozzel in The Empire Strikes Back. He wasn't even in the same room. I think he was in the same ship. Yeah, he wasn't even in the same room. He could have been like half a mile away. Super Star Destroyers are massive. And he just force chokes him without even lifting a hand, which is another thing. Vader's one of the only people, I think, he's one of the only people who uses the Force, who uses telekinesis without moving his hands. Like he does sometimes. He does usually, but not always. And he's one of the only people who demonstrates that level of skill. But in terms of straight power, the thing that sticks out to me is when he lifts the, I think it's the ATDP. Let me look it up. It's the ATDP, All-Terrain Defense Pod from Rebels. He lifts an entire one of those over his head with the Force, which they're basically ATSTs. That's just massive. Probably not quite, not quite, but almost the equivalent of an X-Wing. I haven't done any like real comparisons to that, but that's probably what I'd expect. So, I think in terms of force power, I think again Vader wins, but just barely. I think Anakin hasn't been quite as tested, and he hasn't tested as much. Vader would probably not only be slightly more powerful, but I think he would use the Force more. He relies more on it because his lightsaber skills were changed drastically. He had to rethink his style, and of course he decided that he was going to use the Force more, which is always a good decision. Well, not always. It's most of the time a good decision. So far Vader has won physical and Force abilities. So is there a way for Anakin to be able to defeat or outperform Vader? Other than like a 5K or something. Some speed exclusive competition. Or like, I don't know, beauty contest or something. Is there a way he can outperform Vader in pure combat? And of course, the last aspect of combat is strategy, which is extremely important, especially as you get more and more powerful, especially if it's often how a lesser character can defeat a stronger character, such as Darth Maul is often at the losing end of good strategy, not because his opponents are expert tacticians, but because he gets arrogant sometimes and just ignores threats. Notable examples include Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Kanan Jarrus. So of course it's his first defeat by Obi-Wan. That was very, very arrogant of him to let. He basically must have thought Kenobi was no threat at all, and possibly Sidious intervened. That's an interesting theory that I've heard, but unconfirmed. I think at least a big factor of that was arrogance. Um, so yeah, stream things. I don't know what my stream is telling me. I think it's fine. If it's not fine, oh well. I'll just do another one next week where I'll review Mandalorian Season 2. Finally. It's what I've been waiting for. But anyways, back to Anakin versus Vader. I completely lost my train of thought. Got totally distracted. But now I'm back at strategy and Vader. No. I'm talking about Maul. Right. Arrogance. So his first fight was Obi-Wan. Obviously, arrogance defeated him there. Another time is when he fought Obi-Wan on really all the times where somewhat arrogance, but more so Obi-Wan just found a friend from somewhere. Of course, the first one is with the pirates. Or wait, no, isn't there another one? There is another one. I don't remember how that battle goes, though. I remember how it starts. But the next one is Maul, and he takes over Hondo's pirates, or some of them, and lures Kenobi to floor him before attacking him, killing Adigalia. Pretty cool battle there. But then he has Kenobi outnumbered, and he's like, well, I'm about to win. Like, there's nothing he can do. But then Obi-Wan manages to cut off Savage's arm, and Obi-Wan has Hondo convince the rest of the pirates to attack them. Yeah. So then, even more so when Kanan, in Kanan and Maul's brief battle, Kanan was just blinded. He puts on, like, the Temple Guard helmet or something. He's blind, and Maul totally underestimates him and gets thrown over the edge of a cliff. Maul is like the king of upsets. He's always defeated by lesser people. Except for when Sidious beat him. That was definitely not defeated by a lesser person. He actually did pretty well there. That's one of my favorite battles. But of course, then there's in his battle with Obi-Wan, his very last one, where he, again, arrogantly believed he could beat Obi-Wan with the same move that preceded his defeat of Qui-Gon. That fight, so cool. I wish there were more like it. At the same time, it's cool that it's unique, but I think it's a interesting style. It's a very realistic and suspenseful style that leaves a lot more room for Easter eggs and hints and revealing the various strategies of the characters, because you don't have to plan out like 100 different moves. You just have to plan out like a few moves, a few very well timed, placed moves that end the fight in just a few seconds of like combat, basically. Which of course doesn't make sense for all battles. You want to have some marathon fights where Anakin and Obi-Wan go at it for like 5 minutes straight. But not all duels are like that. Battles are like that. They take a while. But duels, not so much. So, when it comes to tactics, yeah, so that's a very long-winded way of saying that tactics are very important. Let's get back to how powerful Anakin is. Anakin, as a tactician, he's very bold and creative, and Vader retains that, but Vader also has a lot more experience, which I think gives him the edge. Um, I don't know if there's any situations I can point to. I think, yes, his duel with Luke. That was a very masterfully um tactic. Tactic isn't a verb. Um, that was very well done on Vader's part. He controlled the fight from start to, well, not quite to finish. He controlled the fight except for when Luke jumped out of the freezing chamber, when Luke hit him on the shoulder, and when Luke tried to commit suicide, basically. Well, kind of. Chose death over the dark side. Except for those 3 moments, Vader was completely in control of the fight. Like, Luke was helpless. And not just because of his relative lack of power, but because of Vader's tactics. His use of fear is a very well used tactic of Vader's. Anakin is also a great tactician, but he has less control and relies more on surprise and boldness. You see that in a lot of his fights during the Clone Wars. It'd be cool to see like a Clone Wars style show that kind of shows off more of Vader's tactics. It'd be cool to see that. I would just love to see a show on everyone in Star Wars. So awesome. Not everyone, actually. I take that back. There's a lot of people. A lot of them are boring. But all the interesting people, all the pretty much all the Jedi Council members, Dexter, who else is there? A lot of Jedi like Rael Averross, Count Dooku, who's the one I'm thinking of? Quinlan Voss, that one, Ventress, and not just prequel characters. There's it'd be cool to see more of Luke. We could see more of Leia, some Admiral Akbar. Who else is there? General Veers. I know some people would appreciate some General Veers stuff. There's just a ton of cool characters that they could do a lot with. And of course, they can even create their own, like Mando. As long as you've got a good story that is worth telling, I'm fine with it. But in the end, I think Vader is more powerful than Anakin. In comparing Anakin to Vader, I think I explained pretty well how powerful I think Anakin, the Chosen One, Vader, that person is. Comparing him to some other characters, I would say he's not quite at the Sidious and Yoda level. He's more like, I think he's higher. He's slightly above people like Anakin, like Episode 3 Anakin, Mace Windu. Who else is in that area? I think, Dooku. And there's some people right below there, like Obi-Wan and Maul. Maybe not Maul. He's kind of a bit lower. There's some people in that area, but he's above those people. But he's below people like Snoke. Who else is there? Snoke is probably the lowest of the top tier guys. There's also people like the Mortis people, the son, daughter, and the father. There's people like Sidious and Yoda who... Oh, old Luke. That's an interesting battle, is old Luke versus Vader. They're actually surprisingly similar, in my opinion. But I think old Luke would win that. So I think comparing him to a certain number of stormtroopers, I would say about 55 stormtroopers. He's maybe only 50. I don't know. A lot of stormtroopers. He's a beast. He's just so tough. I think he could get hit by like 30 blaster bolts and still survive. All the while, he'd be deflecting most of them back at the stormtroopers. Like you see that scene in Rogue One where he takes on like 10 stormtroopers at like point blank range, or not stormtroopers, 10 rebel soldiers at like point blank range, and then like he just walks forward. He doesn't lunge forward and slash apart the soldiers. He just walks forward and deflects their blaster fire. And that's in a tight hallway. Imagine what he could do in a more open space with cover and that kind of thing. And also, he didn't even get hit once. He could get hit so many times and just keep fighting. So yeah. And then, of course, there's his leadership skills, which, of course, should not be discounted maybe in a duel, but in a battle, how inspiring your leader is can mean the difference between victory and defeat, just because the morale of troops is so important. And we see that he's very much a inspiring leader in the Thrawn book, in the second one, Thrawn Alliances. What are they called? Vader's Fist? That might be the Legends one. I don't know if they're called that in canon. Whatever those stormtroopers are that basically he leads, they think of him as like their leader, like the awesome, he just dominates the battlefield. The whole, like, they think of him as the Vader that Vader fans think of, the most epic side of him that just dominates every battlefield. Vader, super inspiring leader, like creative leader, bold, but also experienced. So he kind of has a sense of what plans are going to work, whether you should come out of hyperspace right next to Hoth, or like kind of farther out to kind of keep the element of surprise rather than just being clumsy and stupid and getting killed for it, which Admiral also did. So that's what I gotta say about how powerful Anakin is. I think a lot of people overestimate him because they look at his Chosen One status, which, by the way, just means that someone said a prophecy about him. That prophecy also includes some things that people should know about him. He happened to be extremely powerful, which is not really that surprising. But his Chosen One status does not mean he is necessarily powerful. That doesn't mean he's not powerful. He is definitely one of the most powerful Force users ever, but he isn't quite as powerful as I think a lot of people say he is. Like, he's cool and all, but not a god. So that's what I gotta say about how powerful Anakin is. And that's it for the topics for this stream. If you are watching the rebroadcast, leave a comment. What did you think of these things? What do you think of Mandalorian Episode 8? What are you most looking forward to in Mandalorian Season 2? Are you going to be able to show up here next week, Saturday at 7 o'clock, whatever time I'm in? I don't know. Saturday evening, I'll be streaming reaction to Mandalorian Season 2, and also 2 other topics, which I don't know what they are yet. I'll probably do another how powerful is a certain person. If you have a suggestion for a topic, leave it in the comments. I'd love to read it, and I might use it if it's not terrible. Even if it is something kind of boring, if it's like a question that you want answered, that, I don't know, you don't want to look up for some reason. If it's just going to be a short thing, like what's your favorite out of these 2, or who do you think would win out of these 2 people, or something, I don't know, something short that I wouldn't be able to put a whole topic, I can just mention it at the beginning or the end or wherever. Another thing, if you are if you know the answer to what is the name of Thrawn's Star Destroyer, you can get 10 points. And one other thing to mention, I've got this is my 4th stream where I've been doing question of the stream. So, and no one has answered any of the questions correctly. And remember, you only get one guess. So, and don't look it up. So, be careful about that. But no one has answered them correctly yet. I've gotten one guess for one of the questions, but no one has answered the questions correctly. So you could win 40 points, of course, if you know the answers. 40 points. That's more than anyone else has ever had. Well, there are some games where people have gotten more than 40, especially basketball. People get more than 40 all the time. But in this game, you would be the what's the word? You would be the winner of the time. You would have the most points out of anyone. All you got to do is know the answer to these four, even one. Even if you go through all 4 videos and you only know one answer, you'd still be the winner, at least for 1 or 2 episodes. So definitely check that out. If you know the name of Thrawn's Star Destroyer, leave it in the chat. If you don't know how to spell it, that's fine, because I would have spelled it wrong too. Spelled it very wrong, actually. Yeah, I would have spelled it so wrong. But if you know that, leave it in the chat. And until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.